Welcome to this tutorial. I'll be taking you through this tutorial on how to crouch. This will be a basic setup of how to make your player crouch. So it won't be much of a tutorial, but shouldn't be too bad. Once it loads. Rightio. Right, first of all, we're going to want to set up an enumeration. We do this by right clicking in our content browser, go into blueprints, and here under blueprints is enumeration. We're going to want to call this something like movement type enum underscore enum. As you can see, I've already got it, so I'm just going to call mine movement type underscore enum2. Right, we're going to want to double click on this, and over on new in the top right corner we're going to want to type in walk, and then we're going to add run, and then finally we're going to add crouch. Right, now we've got this set up, we're going to save and not click on that. Basically, so now you've got yours first set up. I'm just going to delete my example one because I've already got one set up over here. Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the settings and project settings. If you haven't got this taskbar opened here, you can go into edit and project settings here. They both lead to the same place. Now under engine there's input. If we click on that, and if we go to action mappings, there'll be an arrow. Just click that open, and what we want to do is create a crouch. So if you don't have one, what you can do is just click add action mapping. This will allow you to create one here, name it crouch, and then the input key can be created by clicking add action mapping to group. I've set mine as C. You can create multiple mappings just by clicking the add button and selecting the one you want, but I'm just going to keep with C. Right, now we're going to go to the third person character, like so. I've already got the blueprint set up, but I am going to walk you through how to set it up properly and discussing what features each part does. Rightio. Right, first of all we're going to set up the variables. The first variable you should create is toggle crouching. This will be of type boolean, and its default value will be true. And then the second variable should be called is crouching, again of type variable type boolean, and its default value should be false. And then a third variable should also be a boolean, and it should be of default value true. The fourth variable should be of movement type. The variable type should be of what we created earlier before. I named mine movement type underscore enum. You just select the right one. So if you type in movement type, yeah, that's here. There is one already created, however it includes much more stuff. Yeah, so you're best creating your own, as I showed you earlier. And then you select that. Right, and then if you create the fifth variable, this should be of type float, and its default value should be 200. And then the other variable which you should create should be of type float, and its default value should be of 400. And I should have mentioned the name. You should put this should be named crouch speed, and this should be named walk speed, and that should be obvious. But if not, I'll tell you about it later. The next variable should be called camera location, and this should be a variable type vector. The default value should be the location of your camera at its default state. So mine is at 30 on the X, 0 on the Y, and 60 on the Z. So if I go over to the viewport and click on the camera, you can see the relative location is at 30, 0, and 60. Right, if I go back to the event graph, and then we're going to want to create a new variable called camera offset. This is going to be a variable type float, and the default value should be -20. Right, with all that set up, we're going to get started. Right, you'd probably want to try input event crouch, if I spell it correctly, with a space. There you go, and that should show up. It should also show up if you type in the name of it, like crouch, but other stuff may show up. So this is the best option. But here it is, we got it now. Let's drag it a little bit down. First of all, we're going to create a branch, so you can drag off pressed and then type in branch, or you could right click and also type in branch, or you could hold the B key down and left click. There you go, and then just setting up to make it look better, because why not? First of all, we're going to set up a toggle crouching mechanic. So we're going to drag it from the left side here and into and get it. Then what we're going to do is, for design's sake of the blueprints, we're going to get a not boolean. This basically flips the value. So if toggle crouching is true, this will make it false, and if it's false, it'll make it true. Right, we're going to want to hook it up into these branches conditions. And then next we're going to want to get is crouching, and we're also going to want to do the same for that. Get a not boolean, and just place that there. Right, next we're going to want to create another branch and plug that into the false of this top branch, into the input of that branch, and then we're going to want to get the value with this not and plug it into here. Yep. What's next? Yes. What we're going to do is we're going to drag over these branches like so. Press Ctrl C, and then click over here and press Ctrl V with the mouse. With the mouse positioned over here, should I say? And then drag in the true of that and the true of that. Yep, that's correct. Right, now what we're going to want to do is get the true to go into there of this branch here, and the false to go in there. So this is basically the toggle component. So this is, when this is pressed, this will toggle between on and off. However, if toggle crouching is not a thing, then when you hold it down, it will run this one, and when you don't, it will run this one. Next, we're going to set up these branches, which is going to be a simple get can crouch. Then we're just going to arrange it nicely and plug that in like so. Next, we're going to set up the is crouching, so basically say that it is crouching. So we drag out is crouching and we type in set. Right, what we're going to want to do is copy and paste that down, set that value to true, keep that as false, and only run it into the true of the branches. Rightio. Right, what we're going to want to do now is the movement type. Like here, we're going to drag it out and get set. We're then going to copy and paste that over and line them up like so. Now on the top one we're going to set it as crouch, and the bottom one we're going to put walk. Next we're going to set up the walk speed as seen above. This can be done by grabbing the character movement component under components and then dragging it into the scene, and this should get a reference to it. We'll then drag out from this and type in set max walk speed. Then what we do is we copy and paste that over, and remember to plug in the target to the character movement and plug in that there and keep it straight. Now what we want to do is get the crouch speed, which we created earlier, with a default value of 200, and plug it into the top one, like so. And then we want to get the walk speed, and then plug it into the bottom one. You can set these to wherever you want. These are just example ones, 200 and 400. You can change them at your leisure. Right, next is an optional thing. This can be used for vent type things, because one thing I use my crouch system for is to going into a vent. So what this will basically do is it limits the pitch of the character, so when they're looking up, I can show you an example of this. So when you're actually crouching, 2 seconds, let's just delete this a second, because I have two, it's doing that one instead of this. Right, when I'm crouching in the game, the max up I can look is here. This is to stop the camera clipping into the roof of what you're crouching underneath. Now you can include this or exclude it, it's completely up to you. Right, we're going to want to add this input crouch back in, like so, and hopefully it doesn't mess up having two things, but I'm sure it won't. We're going to want to drag this down because it's going to overlap, and we don't want that. Right, what we're going to want to do next is get the camera manager. So get player camera manager. Yep. And then we're going to want to set the max pitch. Set view max pitch. Right, what we want to do is plug it into that set. This is completely optional, as I've mentioned just. So include this or exclude it, it's completely up to you. Make sure they're both plugged into the target. If you're going to exclude it, just don't bother with this, just plug it into the next one, which I believe will be the timeline. Right, the values for this will be of 20, which I found is a good one for this height which you're currently at, and 89. The reason it's 89 is because of the default value, as seen over here, is set to 89.9, so I just went with 89. That seems like a good value. Let's put that as 20. Right, now we're going to want to set up a timeline. We can do this by right clicking and then typing in timeline. Click on add timeline and then call it like crouch underscore timeline. If I can spell crouch right. There you go. Right, what we're going to want to do is plug this into play, plug this into reverse, and double click on timeline. Now we have to set up a float track. So what we do is we click on the top left where it says add float track, left click, and then we go give this a name. We're going to call this crouch value. Yeah, if I can spell it correctly. Crouch value, yep. And then what we want to do is right click in this graph and click add key to curve float. Then what we do is we set the time to 0 and the value to 0. Then what we want to do is add a key to the curve float again, set the time to 0.5 and the value to 1. Rightio, let's just click that. This basically zooms to fit the horizontal and the vertical. Right, now we've got it set up. What we want to do is we want to limit the length of this timeline to 0.5. This is to prevent the timeline from continuing beyond what we require. Basically, the value of 0.5 on time is the time it takes you from normal stance to the crouch stance. Right, what we want to do is left click on this key and control left click on this key. Then we can right click on any of these keys and click auto. This basically adds a nice smooth curve between the keys to give you a nice smooth motion when crouching. Right, now that's set up, I believe we can just compile, save, go back to the event graph. Right, so as you see, it should say crouch value, or wherever you called your float graph. Right, so now that's set up, we are going to want to, let's do the setup first. Right, what we want to do is out of updates, we want to set the capsule half height. So we're going to want to get the under components, the capsule component. We're going to want to drag out, get a reference to it, and then drag out of this reference and type in set capsule half height. Here we're going to want to plug it into update, so that this is updating the capsule half height each time this ticks. So basically this ticks every time it updates between its keys. It is going to update setting the capsule half height, so slowly setting it lower and lower. Right, what we're going to want to do now is get the character movement. So under character movement and the components as discussed, drag out the get, and then drag out from this and get the capsule, not the capsule, it gets, what was it now, crouched half height. See, not everybody knows everything. Get crouched half height, like so. Just going to scroll that over. And we are going to plug that into a loop, if I remember correctly. Float loop. I believe the top value is 88. And I know why that's 88. This is basically your character's half height. So if we go into viewport, click on your capsule component, you can see here capsule half height is set to 88. So what we want to do is go into the event graph and set the A to 88. So we want it to loop, move between 88 and half of 88, which in this case is 40, even though that's not, 40 is not half of 88, but that's the set value for crouch. So we're going to want to plug that into B, leave A as 88, and then plug alpha into the crouch value. Now what alpha is basically the percentage between A and B. So basically if it's 0 it's A, and if it's 100 it's B, and then any between that percentage between is between 88 and whatever crouch half height is. If that's any good of explanation. Now what we're going to want to do is plug in the return value into half height, and that should be good there. And we're going to want to set up this part first, the set relative location of the camera. We're going to want to drag the camera from the components section at the top left and plug this down here. We want to going to get set relative location, if I can spell that correctly. Plug that into there like so, into the set capsule half height, a execution pin, and then we're going to want to set up this the camera movement basically. So we're going to want to get the camera location like so. Yep, I remember what to do. Then we're going to want to create a loop vector, loop with a vector in brackets. That's probably not far enough. Right, okay. Then we're going to want to break this value. So we're going to drag it out and type in break, and under skeletal mesh, no, under components I believe it is. Nope, just here. It's break vector. And then what we're going to want to do is get the camera offset and get the Z out plus float plus float. So that basically adds the camera offset to the camera location. And as you know, the camera offset is -20. You can move this about to see how it works. We're going to want to drag X out and type in make. I believe it's make vector. Yep, make vector. Plug in the Y like so, and plug in the Z to the output of this plus. Right, we're going to want to make that smaller, and then plug in this output of the make vector into B, and then plug this alpha into the crouch value. We're going to move this over to make it nice and lined up like so. Why not? And then we're going to plug in this value into the new location, and I believe that is everything. Yep, that looks like everything's set up. Yep, so what we're going to do is we're going to unclip this one, delete this one, make sure that doesn't get priority. So this one has the current priority right now of the crouch mechanic. So we're going to test it out. If you move around, control ducks, up and down. Now the player model doesn't actually move, just the camera location. However, if you want to do the player model, that'd be a separate mechanic, which can easily be done using the crouch variable we just created. Is crouching, should I say? Right. Although we've done this, the ability to actual crouch, we do need a way of testing if we're crouching, we don't want to go to uncrouch when there's something above us. So again, set up this function. So under functions here on the left, you're going to want to click add function here on the right part of it. Call it crouch check test. And then if I double click this crouch check test, what this basically is it's a branch. Check if you are crouching. It then, if it's true, it creates a sphere traced by channel. It checks if it hit something. If it did, then you can no longer crouch. If it didn't, you can crouch. Yep. This gets the player camera manager, gets the camera's location, and creates a start position for this trace. And then this gets the capsule component, the half height of it, then times it by 1.5. So this is a float times float. And then this makes the vector. This creates a vector of x, 0, y, 0, and z of whatever the half height is, times 1.5. So this is basically the character's height, give or take a bit. And then that adds it to the camera's location in order to create, so that basically this gets the camera's vector, so the point of it where the camera is, and then this gives it the height of the character, and basically it shoots a sphere up above the character, and if there's anything above the character which it can hit, set it unable to crouch or uncrouch, and if there isn't, it would allow it. Right, now what you want to do is go into the event graph and type in the name of the function, which in this case is crouch check test, and you're going to want to plug this into the event tick like so. So if we click play, perfect timing, perfect timing. Not too bad. Right, this is going to create the ability to, I'm going to tap crouch right now. This is going to look a bit silly, but obviously I am tapping crouch right now, and I am unable to uncrouch because the camera is technically still in. Look, because we're on this player character, the camera's actually further out than the centre of mass of the body. So right now this capture point is the centre, and this about here is where you look from, in front of the head of this character. So it is actually getting the value from this point here and shooting up. However, technically it would be best if this camera was centered, because then you would get no clipping through the back accidentally. But you can adjust some variables to make this fit as good as you can. But yeah, that's basically it. This is basically the crouching system. Yeah, that's basically the crouching system. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.